Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
you and Richard.
Yep, that'd be good. Good. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm here to pull us off topic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good hello and welcome back to yet another episode of Wargaming, whenever. The most apathetic wargaming show on the internet. Tonight, or this morning, depending on which side of the planet you're on, we are very pleased to be joined by Nick from IDICBeer40k.
Hello, everyone.
So as usual, myself, Jonathan, and we've got Cal here tonight. So this one will have lots of Necrons on it because we have two people that have been playing Necrons forever. As always, make sure that you do all of the YouTube things or the Facebook things or the Twitch things, depending on which platform you're on. So let's get into it and let's have a quick discussion about some games we've played recently. As viewers of my channel will know, I recently played a game against Cal using the new Annihilation Legion from last month's White Dwarf. And Nick has also had a game with it recently that he put up on his channel, which was a very entertaining game. So look, Nick, you're the guest, so I think it's only suitable that you go first with your game. What would you say was some real highlights, especially pertaining to the Annihilation Legion?
Yeah, well, I mean, I built my list for the Legion around a themed army that I've always played in the past, and that's with 60 flayed ones. And obviously, being objective secure in this Annihilation Legion, I thought I'm going to do that. So, yeah, I had 60 flayed ones in there. I had 3 units of 6 Scorpec destroyers, and they were backed up by a couple of HQs and then some Locust destroyers and heavy destroyers for some shooting. And I was up against Orc Speed Freaks, which is actually their army of renown. Very fast, very nasty army. And to be fair, the first couple of turns didn't go very well. I lost almost all of my army.
It was rough.
However, it was rough. However, I was scoring really well. And not only was I scoring really well, I was denying the Orcs their scoring power. So it got to the end of turn 2. I thought, okay, I'm definitely not going to have many models left at the end. The key was just trying to get as many points as I could. And in the end, I managed to scrape a draw, 73 points each. So it was a fun game. Quite heavy hitting on both sides because I did do quite a bit of damage as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the rules, what I did notice, and probably just because of the army I was up against, is I didn't really have the option, or the time never came up where I could use the special rules of like +1 to hits if you're under half strength, because a lot of his units were single models because it was mainly vehicles that he had. I did have some bikes and some copters, but there wasn't that many opportunities to actually make good use of those rules. And on top of that, even though I took the Vanguard detachment, which is obviously 3 CPs, no CPs, I took 2 relics and 1 warlord trait, so I only had 3 CPs to start with. And where most of the stratagems are 2 CPs, I hardly used any of them. I used 1 stratagem once, right at the end of the game. So that was 2 things that stuck out to me. As I didn't really use the rules that much, the special rules, and yeah, the CPs were really hard to get out. And actually, I played another game since that game. The battle report is going to be up on the channel soon, and that was against Tyranids. And I had exactly the same scenario, really, where I didn't really get many opportunities to use those special rules, and I didn't really use any of the stratagems. So that was the standout thing that I noticed about the Legion. But I really like the way that you can build the list, especially if you're like me, you like to build themed lists. I think it works well.
Oh, basically all of my lists are themed to a theme one way or another. Like I ran basically the exact same Annihilation Legion you did against Cal, because to be honest, with the restrictions that the army puts in place, there's not a huge number of other options.
It's very pigeonholed into there's only certain units that you can take that's actually going to be effective in the game.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that maybe you could do the opposite way and have loads and loads of destroyers. But the issue you've got then, of course, the Vanguard detachment, you can only have like 2 units.
Yep.
So then you've got to start taking other detachments, and then you're eating into your CPs. You can't take the relics of warlord traits. So as you say, it's really tough to build outside of that. Yeah.
Yeah, which is somewhat disappointing. There's one change, and me and Cal were talking about this earlier, when we recorded our game, that I would make to it. And instead of making it that you got a Vanguard for free, I just would have changed flayed ones from being elites to troops.
Yeah.
For it, so
Yeah.
that you could just run it in a standard detachment.
Yeah. Rather than give them objective secure, just say they're troops.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about this a bit later, obviously, but I was thinking about like the new cult, the cryptic.
Yeah.
They should have just made scarabs troops rather than having the warriors in there. But we'll talk more about that later. Yeah.
Yeah, scarabs or even the wraiths. Actually, nah. Yeah,
See,
scarabs.
it's not even out of the question. Like we've seen GW do it quite a few times, especially with Chaos in 8th edition. You know, if you wanted to say, if you were taking World Eaters, obviously you got Berserkers as, you know, for the troop slots. Yeah. But
Well,
I think 9th and Neth, they've seemed to have gone a little bit of a strange direction with what they want the game to be, and then how the mechanics are going to come into play without even talking armies yet. It's different. It's become strange.
Oh, look, off the back of that, the bit that I found rather peculiar, now that you mentioned, you know, they've done it before, they did it with the Annihilation Legion. The Hexmark Destroyer, they changed to a HQ.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Something I found with the Annihilation Legion that I really, really liked, and I almost wish that they'd put the Scorpic Destroyer's relic, Scorpic, not just Scorpic Destroyer, the Scorpic Lord's relic, if they put that into the main codex, because that relic is a lot of fun. Because like, oh, he only has 4 attacks. He just killed 13 of your guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he's certainly very playable with that relic, whereas without that relic, not so much so. Yeah.
Because yeah, not to give away too much of our game, because we want you to go watch it through to the end. But there was a moment where there was some very, very lucky rolling that happened way against the odds, and because of that spillover damage, it just made the problem so much worse for Cal.
Look, long story short, I don't care about views because it's not my channel.
Wow.
But long story short, I lost a lot of things.
To be fair, you also bought easily the dumbest army you could have put together with the data sheets that AdMech have.
I also theme my army with what is the stupidest thing possible.
Yeah.
So
how many Skatari did you bring along?
So I took 9 units of 20 Scutari Vanguard. So all up, my list had 183 models that were pushing out 543 shots max potential a turn.
It didn't work. Although, to be fair, the strategy you used of trying to stop me from charging you with all of my choppy things
Also didn't work.
also didn't work, because you bought a list where my shooty things were not going to be able to do much anyway. So if I sat them back on objectives and did actions with them, doesn't matter.
Well, that's your fault for bringing a balanced list.
I know. How dare I bring a balanced list?
But it was something that I actually did enjoy with your video then, Nick, because you and Richard did actually take proper lists. You're playing properly, succinctly. So seeing the how it actually interacts army wide against something that it does have vehicles, it does have a decent amount of characters. There's because Richard actually he took a list that has some pretty good flexibility in it. So seeing a lot of the interactions, and I love when he called for the Warg. I thought that was brilliant.
I had to put the volume right down to like almost nothing for it to actually like explode the speakers.
Yeah, there was some excitement if nobody's seen it yet.
Oh, it was definitely a game worth watching.
Yeah.
After this, go watch it. I highly recommend it. So Nick, overall, besides what we've already discussed, what was your impression of the Annihilation Legion as far as an army that you can get up and play and it's fun?
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential. I think it's probably better at larger point games than probably smaller point games. It's 1,500 to 2K. I think you could get a half decent list in there. You are going to need some guns, and I don't really have enough guns, but I am self-limiting myself with those 60 flayed ones. I could probably reduce the numbers, maybe just 2 units of 20, and have a few more guns in the army. But yeah, I mean it's got a lot of potential to do well. And I said I've played against Tyranids, and I can't no spoilers, but I was impressed with that game as well. So yeah, 2 games so far and I haven't lost, so that's not bad.
Nids are tough.
I've just given the spoiler away.
Oh, whoopsie.
That's right, I'll give a spoiler. We can edit live, can't we, Jonathan?
Yeah, sure. That's definitely something that we can do. Look, my main criticism of the Annihilation Legion, as I've already said, is that it does kind of shoebox you into taking the same list, because there's not a lot you can really change, especially once you consider if you're going matched play and you go the rule of 3, because you don't have any troop starter sheets, so you can't take more than 3 of any unit, which is actually kind of disappointing, because I wouldn't mind taking 120 flayed ones.
I'm available for that game.
Well, back in I can't remember the edition, 7th, or I think it was 7th. There was no 3 limit, so I was always playing my flayed ones as 6 units of 10, and I was deep striking them all 6 units. I was deep striking in. That was a lot of fun. That was fun.
Back when you had to roll scatter dice for them to come in.
Oh,
indeed, yes, yeah.
Cal, I'm having flashbacks to the last time I actually deep struck something with a scatter dice. And it was
I'm petitioning GW to bring it back in the mission pack.
Oh, look, I do hope they bring it back, mainly because I want to see myself kill my own monolith again. Because every time I deep strike a monolith, before they got rid of the scatter dice, of course, it was always scatter into something, mishap, and have the catastrophic disaster or whatever it was.
Yeah, I've had that exactly the same thing. First time I used it with Deep Strike, came in, I rolled a double 6 for the scatter, landed on top of a unit, and then I rolled, I think it was on a 6 again, it exploded, and mishapped, and then I lost it first turn.
Oh, it happened every time with mine. It was one of the things at the beginning of 8th when they got rid of that. I was like, yes, I can finally deep strike my monolith without losing it. It's just too bad that monoliths have not had good rules since like 3rd edition.
Yeah.
Kind of
Back when
disappointing.
Gauss,
Kind of
back when
disappointed
Gauss were
that.
amazing.
Oh, look, Gauss was so good back then. Oh, this is quickly going to turn into nostalgia wargaming.
I was going to say, if you've just tuned in, this is basically 3 old men talking about what it was like back in our day of playing the game.
Back when the bright lances reduced your armor, unless you had a monolith.
Back when I could last an entire game without sitting down somewhere.
Fair. You know, I kind of actually missed the phase out rules.
Yeah.
It was very, very fluffy. It was also the bane of my existence.
I tried to forget that rule. I pretend it never existed.
Oh, fun. So, Nick.
Well, I do have a funny story though about the phase out rule.
Ooh,
we were playing
yes.
a pairs game, 2 of us, and back in those days you deployed 1 unit at a time, and we had this massive tomb on the table, and I deployed 1 small unit of warriors right behind the tomb, and you literally couldn't get behind the tomb. And we played the game. They killed like the last warrior unit. They goes, "That's it, you phase out." It's like, no, got another unit over here. Like they totally forgot it was there.
Whoopsie. Good times.
And that's as big as the feels bads got back then. There was no strat popping. There was no gotcha moments. It was just if there was a feels bad, it was either because of the dice or because of you. That was it.
Yeah.
It was back in the days when Necrons either won very convincingly or lost very convincingly. There was no in between. It was do or do not.
You know what I actually missed the most? Now, I'm not even a Necron player, but now that we're talking nostalgia, I miss the little green rods. That made them for me.
I love them as well. Yeah, I mean, when they first phased them out, I was converting my miniatures with green rods, like the Overlord Warside, like cut out the plastic bit, and then my death marks. Now I don't do that so much. I've come round to it. I totally understand why they took them away.
Yeah,
because ultimately they do look better without the green rods from a model point of view and from a painting point of view. But there's something that's really, really cool about having those green rods. That's what I loved about the army in originally, you know, all those cool green rods on the table.
Yeah, look, my original Necron warriors will always have the thick, gloopy paint job that I put on them as a teenager, and they will always have their green rods. But also, yeah, getting rid of them was definitely the right move. And not just because I changed the color of like the Gauss weapons in my army from green to orange. Although I suppose I could print orange green rods.
You're going to print orange green rods.
Look, I did not think that sentence through before I said it. Oh, fun. Well, look, I think we should jump into some news now. So for those of you who are not aware, where have you been? How are you watching this if you're not aware of the leak of the Cult of the Cryptek? That's right, Necrons are getting another Army of Renown. It really was Spooktober, and now it's... Oh, crap, I forgot the word. There was a pun there, but it slipped off my tongue. I know, is there a joke in December? Because, you know, it should be 10, but it's 12 because Roman rulers wanted to add a month named after themselves.
Alrighty, we're not saving ourselves from this from this.
No, look, this sentence gets worse.
You lost me a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, I started checking Twitter and just seeing what was already.
Look, so yeah, look, I'm gonna share up the leaks of the Army of Renown, and we can go through them. And
there's some fun things in here.
I don't know if you've seen this yet, Nick, or not, but I expect you will have.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't normally look at the leaks because I really enjoy getting the book or whatever it is and like reading it for myself in my hands. I love that experience,
That's
and I
fair.
think leaks spoil that for me. However, because I was coming on this live stream, I did watch a couple of videos last night about the leaks, so I do know some of it.
Leave it to the Australians to spoil your experience. But no, there's some really interesting things. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not a Necron player, so I don't know the complete ins and outs of the army. I only know of being on the opposite side of you guys scoring points so heavily, consistently early on. But there's some really good looking combos from when Jonathan and I were talking about the leaks. Was there anything that popped out to you that you really liked the idea of?
Oh, well, the things that popped out to me particularly were the stratagems, only one CP. So I was looked at those, I was thinking, not only are they pretty decent, but at one CP they're very usable. Which obviously is, as I said in the Annihilation Legion, I hardly couldn't use them basically. So that did stand out to me. That was the main thing really.
Yeah, I think we came across a couple of the warlord traits, and we had a bit of a giggle there for 15, 20 minutes, just thinking of the scenarios that they could come up with.
It's gonna be a wild time, and look, by far my favorite part of this Army of Renown is I actually have enough models to play it, because I don't have 18 Scorpec destroyers, unfortunately, to play an Annihilation Legion IRL. Can only do it on tabletop sim. Because at the beginning of 9th, when the Scorpec Destroyer got released, basically the only thing I was fighting was Death Guard, because the two other guys in my gaming group that play regularly play Death Guard, and Scorpec Destroyers do not do well against Death Guard in my experience. The -5 damage,
yeah,
coupled with the toughness 5, you can't get through them. But this looks very exciting because I have plenty of these. So for the Cult of the Cryptek, for those that don't know, another Army of Renown based around Crypteks. So the restrictions are that you're restricted to Cryptek, Canoptek, Necron Warriors, and Convergence of Dominion. So you could just, say Cryptek, Canoptek, or Necron Warriors, because who really takes a Convergence of Dominion? Nika, apparently.
If there was anybody that was going to be taking any unit from any Necron dynasty or anything of that, it would probably be the gentleman that we've called in this evening.
This is true.
Can I just say, I am going to play the Convergence in my list. I know how bad they are, but the fact that they're part of the restrictions and they're only 100 points, they're
true.
such a cool looking miniature. I'm going to put them in the list just because I can. My list will have them.
Look, I might do it as well, because agreed, they are a cool miniature, and the only reason I bought them is because that's basically my strategy for buying miniatures. It's like, do I want to paint that and put it on my shelf? So the benefits of this are really cool in my opinion. So you get access, obviously, some extra arcana, some warlord traits, some stratagems. You get the Cult of the Cryptek keyword, which plays in with the stratagems naturally. But you get Tomb Guardians. So just like with the Annihilation Legion, you get no dynastic codes. Fine, but you get +1 attack to everything, and you reroll reanimation protocols of 1 on everything, which should be quite significant given the fact that you're going to be looking at taking scarabs, wraiths, that sort of thing. So re-rolling those ones should be able to. If you lose 1 or 2 wraiths, I expect you'll be able to convert, 1 or 2 of those ones into a 5 or a 6, and just tick you over that wound limit to get an extra 1 back up, rather than having those counters wasted, which should be really cool. I'm looking forward to that a lot. The Warlord traits, I'm super stoked about this because we get 6 of them as opposed to the Annihilation Legion where we only got 1, which was kind of disappointing. But we get 6, so that's really cool. And I don't know which one I like more, to be honest. I like them all. I want to take all of them in one list. I know I can't, but I want to.
I'm available for that game.
So look, I don't know which one I like more, to be honest. Nick, do you have a favorite one?
I think I do like the Annihilation Legion probably the best because it's a fantastic excuse to get those 60 flayed ones on the table. However, I'm really looking forward to this one because I've played canoptic type lists many times. So when I've got 6 Tomb Spiders, I've got 18 Wraiths, I've got 43 Scarab bases, 3 Doom Stalkers, got all the cryptics. I'm ready to go. So my world is my oyster with this army. So I'm looking forward to working out a list for it. Yeah.
I can think of about 6 different lists that I want to try with this. It looks so good.
You bring up an interesting point because I wonder this a lot with different players as we go. But what do you think of? Is your usual inspiration of putting a list together? Is it finding something kind of kooky that you think might work and build around it? Do you come up with, as you were saying before, a bit more of a themed idea with the lists?
Yeah, usually I start by saying what unit or units do I want to play in this game, like tomorrow or whatever. So I'll say, right, I really fancy playing the Canoptic Doomstalker, for example. I haven't played that for a while, so I want to play that. And then I build my list around that. So it's like, well, how big is the game? If it's 1,000 points, I might take 2. If it's 2,000 points, I say, well, I'll have 3. And I think, right, well, now I need a Technomancer to give me the control node. And then I build the list around that unit and it expands out. So that's generally how I build my lists.
Okay, cool. Because we see a lot of people kind of come up with a whole bundle of ideas. Some guys like Dean from Blog for the Blog, plans his lists out, a month or even further in advance, depending on tournament, all that kind of thing. Obviously not for friendly, but no, it's always really interesting to see because list building is like we talk about it a lot, but nobody ever really talks about what's their idea, what's their personal views of going into something like that. And that becomes a very personal part of the hobby almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Look, I find I build a lot of my lists that same kind of way, to be perfectly blunt with you. Like with my Iron Warriors, for example, I'm like, I want to take 2 Vindicators and a Forge Fiend because this is very Iron Warriors to me.
I basically, if I'm reading the rules book and I say lol, that's what I'm going to be building around for that list.
The question is though, Cal, do you continue reading the rule after you say lol?
No. I go straight into building the list. And then I get the rules wrong and Zach corrects me and then I build a different list.
Or we find that we get the rules wrong while we're editing the video.
List building is much harder though, isn't it, these days?
Yes.
Because of all the detachments and stuff. I mean, in the past, it's like, 1 HQ, 2 troops, and then you build your list from there. Now, but when I'm building my lists, I come up with all the units that I think I want in the list. And then I think, right, am I taking a battalion? Do I need 3 troops?
Yeah.
If I'm not taking 3 troops, then, what's the core unit? Am I going to need lots of like elites or lots of fast attack? Then you have to pick your detachments as well. So it is definitely a lot more complicated to actually build your lists. Yeah.
Well, so even you can't even, because of how hard and fast and consistently FAQs and data slates come out now, that makes it harder too. You can't just you can't pick up the book off the shelf anymore and just have a flick through and say, okay, this is going to do this and this would work fantastic with this unit. We have a lot of double checking to do now. The internet is an integral part of what we do with wargaming these days. But no, you make a great point. It is very hard these days, especially with now mission packs changing. What is it supposed to be quarterly?
Yeah.
Like Neff was a huge change
Mm.
from what we were used to.
I
I
almost
think it's been the
that,
best one so far, though, well, especially for Necrons.
oh, for Necrons by far.
Yeah,
I
Because
actually
everything in your damn book became core.
that did
I mean,
help.
it does have a Necron on the front of the cover, doesn't it? So, you know.
They didn't bury the lead.
Look, if it has the Necron keyword, it gets core.
Yeah.
Look, with Neff, I had another point I wanted to bring up, but I'll shelve that for a second. What do you think of the Necron secondaries, Nick? Because personally, I think that they are a little bit on the overpowered side.
I think they're about right. And I think if you look at the GW Meta Watch, it proves they're about right. You
That's
know,
fair.
we are at 54%, aren't we?
Yeah.
And that the leeway is 45 to 55. So we're at the top of that barrier. And for me, that's a good place to be.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining that they're good.
No,
I found that fighting Cal with them, I mean, sure, to be perfectly blunt, the list he bought was atrocious for that game.
No, it was the best list you could have possibly imagined. It was just the worst matchup for it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
that's
yeah. I mean, a key thing is obviously I play against orcs a lot, and
Yeah.
orcs are just horrible, and it's a bad matchup. And on top of that, Richard was scoring all of his secondaries so well in the past. So not only was he like really good, he really fast, really good at shooting, great psychic powers, really good in the assault, and his scoring ability was like super good as well. Now he doesn't struggle to score, but he's definitely more limited in his secondary options for scoring, and I feel that has helped level the battlefield. He still annihilates me. I lose most of my models pretty much after 2 turns.
Yep.
But he does struggle to score as well, you know. So I think overall, I think they're about right.
Well, so it's good that you mentioned orcs because, and specifically the game with Richard, because you guys ended in a tie after such heavy losses, kind of either side, especially on the Necron side. You know, for the first 2 turns, I found playing against Necrons and watching a lot of battle reports that they can score very quickly and consistently early in the game, which is very, very strong because a lot of armies aren't coming to, you know, a decent scoring round turn 2, turn 3 kind of thing. So to kind of start pulling away and for you guys to end up in a tie, I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I had to have my wits about me on that on that game, definitely.
Because the cameras were on.
Well, yeah.
that, and orcs do love crumping some shiny boys.
Oh yes, they do indeed.
Because to be honest, I hadn't until that game I played against Cal. I hadn't picked up my Necrons in a couple of months because just like to cycle through armies every couple of months and play some different things. And I was surprised when I read the secondaries because I was off memory from way they were printed in the book. You couldn't score a lot of them in the first. It's specified cannot be scored first battle round. And I was looking for it, being like, have I just not read it, or is it actually not here? And I was very surprised that it just was not there at all. I was like, that's going to score very, very quickly.
Yeah.
It was an easy fix though for GW, wasn't it? Because Necrons weren't in a great place.
No, they
and
definitely were not.
Yeah, this solved it without actually having to change too much with the actual army. So, you know, gave us the core keyword, gave us some good secondaries, and we're, you know, in an okay place.
So I think it's a bit strange that they're still in an okay place. Because they're perfectly in the middle kind of spot, because there's been a lot of Necron games recently in GTs and Opens where we've seen a lot of players score perfect games very consistently. So I don't know if there's new Necron players that are kind of dragging the numbers down a little bit, but it's been very strange to see and watch a lot of the games. Obviously, I keep up with a lot of the meta stuff, but then comparing the games that I've actually seen and now played, compared to where they're actually sitting in the meta rankings, it almost seems a little off.
Yeah, I suppose the thing is, although the secondaries are like easy to score and good to score, you still have to be able to do it as well.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like Treasures of Eon sounds so simple, doesn't it? Like, oh, there's 3 objectives in the middle, just got to get on them. Actually, scoring those points can be quite tricky, especially if you're up against those competitive players that can just take out units so quickly and easily. So I suppose ultimately what I'm saying is there's still some skill that you need as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of skill and a lot of luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've had many a discussion over. You can have the best army in the world. You can run squats pre-release versus guard with the 8th Ed Guard Codex rules as written.
Yeah, I was going to say, because 9th are pretty nice.
Oh, look, when I think of the worst army in 9th, I go to the 8th Ed Guard Codex as it's printed, using the 9th rule set. And you'll still lose with the best army in the game if you don't know what you're doing. So even when you have the best army, there's still a lot of skill. And I think given just how many armies are in the bracket between 45 and 55% win rate in the Meta Watch, shows that while, yes, it's fun to complain about GW's rules not being balanced,
that's half the game.
That is half the hobby. They are actually doing a pretty good job of late. Despite, a particular group of people who Cal loves to dunk on all the time that insist on having a brand new codex printed. Just because they got squatted. Oops, I gave away which army it was.
Look, I still think that is probably one of the stupidest things I've heard in recent years in the hobby from the community itself. Okay, I will give them that, FAQs haven't been around for a ridiculously long time compared to the game. But they have been around for long enough that we know what happens with them. Now, with the Leagues of Votann book, and the judgment mechanics being changed, there was only actually one word that was changed, and then of course the point cost. I have seen quite a few people, probably in the realms of 10 to 15, who have screenshotted their emails to Games Workshop asking when they're getting a free copy of the book that has been updated.
Can you imagine being the intern having to sort through those emails?
Yeah, it's one of those. It kind of goes into one of those ridiculous spots in their own little corner of the internet that these people seem to take up. But you're right. Half of this hobby is complaining. The other half is kind of taken up with talking about games that we have or would play, and then we have maybe 1% of we actually roll dice. Yeah.
And then you get into close combat with Tau and the dice betray you.
Yeah.
Fun. Okay, well, if we don't have anything else we want to say on the Cult of the Cryptech, or if there's any other news either of you want to talk about for this week, other than, Warhammer Christmas baubles, I will always be happy to talk about Warhammer Christmas baubles. I got a bunch of them on my tree already. It's fantastic. Yes, I know it's November. I'm deciding I'm just going to make the rules up from now on.
Is there a Necron one? There isn't, is there?
There isn't, but there is a Squig one, and this is funny to me. And Gobbo, which is very amusing to me. I think we should all write letters to the manufacturer of the baubles to get some Necron ones for next year.
Definitely.
Because Merchoid made a Necron jacket, which looks fantastic.
The leather one, yeah?
Yeah, the leather one. I believe
I've got it.
I believe you got that.
I've got it. I have. It's fun. I love it. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Well, while we are talking about Games Workshop and Christmas, they went all in with Goth the Rocker. Like he's got what is it now? Obviously the model, which we kind of expected to see.
That model is
He
very
had
cool as well, by the way. I
it's not a
love that
bad
I
model.
love that they crammed a speaker into the Squig's mouth.
But they also went out and made a song that's streaming, a film clip then for the song, and then an almost it's a limit, obviously limited, kind of press pack. So you can get the shirts, you can get a jumper, you can get a tour poster of Goth the Rocker. I think this is kind of a nice side of GW which we haven't seen until recently with James Workshop. They're becoming a lot more light-hearted than historically we know them as a company.
This is true.
I think it's a pretty
Yeah.
good change. I'm
It's
happy
a very
with it.
good change.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can go and just have a bit of a laugh at yourself,
Yeah.
it shows that you're open to change, which I mean is a very good thing for the hobby as a whole. Because if the company that makes it is not listening to the people that are buying the stuff, eventually those people will move on.
To be fair, we've had probably 25 years of that previous to
This is
them
true.
kind of changing around what they've thought. Which is probably why the 35th edition, the kind of anniversary show where they did the pre-release stuff, there wasn't a lot of nostalgia brought up in there. There was a few little snippets in there of like, what is it? 1989 we bought this out. Second edition we had a cardboard cutout of an orc dreadnought.
Good times. Good
Yeah.
times.
I remember playing with cardboard terrain from the kit, when it had to be kind of popped out and folded along the lines.
Oh, look, at the risk of being accused of one-upping you, Cal, we used to just put books on the floor and throw a green sheet over the top of them, and that was a rolling grass plains.
Oh, that's cute. You had a floor.
We did have a floor, and we just used the rug in the lounge room, which was like twice as big as it needed to be as the battlefield. So close combat armies back in the day just were absolute rubbish because you could not get close enough to do anything. Fun.
No, there's a lot of things that I think historically we've seen, well, not even seen, but the idea that we've kind of had in the consciousness of the hobby, that Games Workshop seems to be kind of flipping over and saying they're being a lot more welcoming as well to content creators, as we've seen a lot of artists kind of been taking into their affiliate programs and being flown from all around the world, guys like Zorp from Australia, John Ninas, Scott Walter, those kind of guys being brought into the fold, where they're actually participating in a lot of the Games Workshop stuff. I don't want to go into the JH Miniatures versus Spiky Bits kind of thing, but
let's not go into internet drama, please. We'll be here all night.
There's a lot more, they're a lot more conscious of the people that are in the hobby and what's actually going on around, and they're not so vice gripped. I know if we start talking, 3D prints and intellectual property, they still have a bit of a vice grip, but fair. But we're seeing them kind of become a very welcoming company. Like at least that's how I kind of see it from what we see out here. Is it any different, kind of being in the land that bought us this wonderful game that we only talk about?
No, and I get the same impression, really. Yeah, you can tell that they're fairly light-hearted about themselves, aren't they? And when you look at some of the comments that they get, fair play to them, for just soldiering on and just trying to make the best models they can. Ultimately, that's what they're trying to do.
The stiff British upper lip, as we say out here.
Yeah.
Fun. All right. Look, before we move on into over under, we just need Nick to help me and Cal resolve something that came up on last week's show. Because last week, for those that tuned in, we discussed everyone's, and by everyone I mean my favorite model in the game, the Tesseract Vault.
Oh,
and why it's just kind of meh. Of memory, I remember I wanted to bump its toughness up a bit and give it some kind of psychic defense, like a 5-up feel no pain against mortal wounds or something. And Cal, I kind of forget what you suggested, but it wasn't that. It disappointed me greatly.
I just wanted to drop it to about 300 points. Same stat line, 300 points. Make it a lot cheaper. It kind of becomes a little bit more worth it for, pound for pound.
Thoughts, Nick, on how to make the Tesseract Vault less of just a display piece?
Yeah, I've played it twice in 9th edition, and it's a lot better than it was, because obviously if you stand still, you do get buffs, don't you, to the guns. I can't remember 100% what it is. Is it two damage? Is it? I can't remember what the debuff is now. It's been a while since I played it.
I don't
is it
actually
extra
remember
strength?
there being was there a buff?
Yeah, if you stand still, you get. So I think it goes up on strength and AP or something.
If it doesn't move, yeah.
Damage.
I must have pulled a Cal and not read the whole rule.
How do I even know this?
How do you know this?
What I was doing is I was deploying it like quite close to an objective, and then doing my pre-game move on it, because I was playing 3 Lord of Wars, so I was benefiting from the Dynasty code. I had to objective secure pre-game move, so I moved it on an objective in my pre-game move, and then I just sat there so that I didn't move, and I was scoring the objective. And I thought, yeah, it'd be, just sit there, use its guns. I've got loads of guns, and don't move, which gives you the benefit. I think off memory, I'm trying to remember. I think you get strength 8 and 2 damage if you don't move. However, right. still has no AP, and that's the big thing. No AP, lots of shots, but really didn't do much damage. And then Richard just shot loads of like strength 8, damage 3, and it went in a
And honestly, it doesn't have the range on a weapon to not move to receive such a minor buff.
Yeah, that was the big problem I had with it. That and the fact that I was fighting Thousand Suns, and it would just get mortal wounded to death. I think there was one game I played against Chris. He brought out the Thousand Suns. He didn't touch it for 3 turns because I forget the name of the Satan power that I used, but the one that was hit everything within 9 inches and just dealt out heaps of mortal wounds if you got it into the middle of your enemy's army. I think
sorry, I beg your pardon. I've just had I'm talking about the obelisk.
Obelisk. That's why
if you stand still. That. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're talking about the vault, aren't you?
Yes.
It just twigged when you said about the Catan powers inside. It twigged. So forget everything that I said. I was talking about the vault.
That's okay.
The obelisk.
And I was just agreeing with Nick because he looked like he knew what he was talking about.
No, the open obelisk with the transcendent Catan inside.
I'm with you now. Big
expensive.
I totally agree with Callum. I think it just needs to come down in points, because overall he's actually pretty decent. The 4+ invulnerable save, the Catan powers, you got the spheres on there. It just needs to be cheaper.
Look, I'm not going to complain about saying it needs to be cheaper, obviously. I would just like to see some psychic defense because I fight Thousand Suns way too often. And every single time I've taken it against them, once it gets close enough to really start popping off those Catan powers, it just gets hit with mortal wounds. And it's like, oh, cool. In one psychic phase, my 30 wound model that has a 4-up invulnerable save just took 48 mortal wounds. Yay.
Yeah.
That was 450 points well spent.
Mortal wounds are just a pain in general, aren't they? Especially for Necrons.
Oh, especially for Necrons.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me, just going slightly backwards, the Scarab Swarms can deep strike, can't they, in the Cult of the Cryptic?
I believe
you can use a CP.
Yes.
There's a
swarm
stratagem,
descent.
so you can
you can deep strike them, which That actually does sound kind of fun, dropping a blob of 10 scarab swarms on someone.
Someone, it'll be me.
It will be Cal. Cal, you are going to have to find so many toasters.
Look, I'm probably going to take Tau, just so you know,
Oh.
the Overwatch alone. I can't say that too late because Tau's actually banned in my house.
Yeah, any moment, Cal will be murdered by his wife just for saying
Yeah.
the T word.
Yeah.
Just for a bit of background on that, Nick, Cal is specifically banned from ever
Yes.
bringing Tau into his house. His wife will divorce him if he does it.
Really?
Yeah. So we used to own a hobby shop a few years ago, and Tau players have really rubbed her the wrong way for a couple of those years. So they are banned. It got to the point where even the stock that we had of Tau didn't go on the shelf. It was a very special ask thing, and don't ask her.
Fair play, fair play.
Yeah.
Very
The only
reasonable.
customers that didn't receive a discount.
Look, to be fair, Tau absolutely deserve it.
Oh yeah. That was actually for the greater good.
Wow. Okay, well, look, we'll move into over under proper now. Cal, name an overpowered unit.
I really can't. The God Spear, the
The
brand new God
Godspear?
Spear from the Guard.
brand new
Yes.
Godspear. Oh, this could be fun because I'm actually not overly familiar with that. And Nick,
well, let me fill you in.
name an underpowered unit that you'd like to improve.
It's so hard, isn't it? Because there's so many.
It's a difficult question.
I'd like to see a slight improvement, say, on the Hexmark Destroyer.
I can definitely agree with you on that. Okay, well, I'll flip the
Yeah.
squats coin, and as always, comes up squats, overpowered, comes up Warhammer, it's underpowered. Feel free to read into that whatever you like. Oh, I think I saw what that was.
You did this to me last week.
I did. It is Warhammer, so we will be, and you couldn't see that because Google
Because
blurred that out.
cheating again.
Yes, obviously cheating again. Nick's here. We got to go with his option naturally. So Hexmark Destroyer. I've got the codex here, so I can actually remember what it is because it's one of those units that awesome model, and just like the new monolith we got, what are these rules even? So where's the page for it? And for those who are not overly familiar with Necrons, it's an elite's choice. It's a number of points. It moves 8. It's weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 2, strength 5, toughness 5, 5 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 10, because that so matters in a 1 model unit, and save of 3+. It has 6 pistols with 18-inch range, strength 6, AP -1. Absolutely fantastic with Armor of Contempt running around, and just a single damage. It also ignores Lookout Sir, and has some other fun rules that do stuff, as well as Hardwired for Destruction, so reroll hit rolls of 1, and can synergize with the Destroyer Lords quite nicely.
What's its power level?
4 power level, so it should be
Okay.
it's somewhere around 80 points off the top of my head. So, Nick, being the guest, how would you see this model being usable?
I think the Hexmark Destroyer is actually really good against certain units. So if you're up against, say, Tyranids, you know, you're playing shooting at some Gants or something, that's pretty good because it's the strength 6. The gun, so you know you're wounding on 2s. Actually, the hits on 2s and re-rolls the 1, so you get lots of shots off. And obviously the AP -1, so no save. So you get to shoot again for every miniature that you kill. It's actually really good against really weak units, but if you try to put them up against some Space Marines, it does nothing, literally. So I suppose you're going to be looking at some extra AP, probably a little bit of extra damage, maybe. Maybe not necessarily like 2 damage for every shot, but maybe 2 damage if you rolled a 6 to wound or something, just to help get some damage through.
Yeah, that could be good. Cal, I have some thoughts on this, but I'll save me for last. Cal, thoughts on how you would bring it into line with being usable?
I honestly, I don't play Necrons, and I've never really come across this because it doesn't sound like a bad unit, but it just doesn't sound like a great unit, which is something that we find. I think it sounds like it's been a little left in the waysides because there's other units that you take in place of it to kind of
Death
fill
marks.
the same role. Exactly. So as far as fixing it goes, I really don't know. Does it have core?
It does have core because it's a Necron.
Well, yeah, I'm out of ideas then.
Look, I personally, I'm of the opinion they already fixed it in the Annihilation Legion with the relic that you can give it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Course it's look, I will pull it up because it does some fantastic stuff, but I can never remember exactly the details
It's
because
a strength 8 gun,
Yeah.
isn't it, with the relic?
Yeah,
So you can have less shots, but one more powerful shot.
Yeah.
yes. But the best part of it is that it's not you exchange the pistols for it. It's in addition to that, and then you choose between the two, which gives you naturally the advantage of
Match up to unit.
being
Yeah.
able to use it more flexibly, which is something I very much like. So I'm just pulling up the rest of the data sheet for it.
But no, I think Nick was right. It sounds very situational. Now I think we've seen a lot of units and data sheets come out, especially lately, that they're average to good, but they're very situational. So things like the Helldrake, for example, fantastic model, especially when you convert it, and then. But no, that it depends on the matchup. It depends on who you're playing against. What secondaries you've taken. It's aircraft not being included for things like engage, and a lot of the secondaries makes it a little bit harder to play with. But yeah, it sounds like that kind of a unit. It's just situational.
It's very
it really
situational.
depends on, like, same thing. If you're running into let's say elves, so you wanted to take it against Harlequin or Eldari, something that was T3, I think that would actually do fairly well. That'd be a fairly strong unit on your side. But into things like, as we're seeing, super tough things like Space Marines, the new Chaos stuff, Custodes. What does anything to Custodes these days? But
look, I kind of want to fight Zach's Custodes with the Annihilation Legion and take a couple of Hexmarks Destroyers because as Nick did already mention, the Mask of Obliteration, which is the relic, it reduces it from getting 6 shots to just 1. It reduces its range from 18 to 12, boosts its strength up to 9, AP -3, D3 +3 damage. But wait, there's more, because it can ignore Lookout Sir, and then once you've picked your target, you draw a line between the target and it, and
so it's a beam weapon as well.
everything gets hit.
Yeah, but we see that with things like a Mortarian's Lantern. Obviously, and actually the squats, they have beam cannons now as well. As effective as they are, it kind of needs a little bit extra to go off, and 12 inches is not a lot of range, especially if we are talking specifically Custodes. You don't want to be 12 inches away from Custodes in the middle of your turn.
It depends, because the Hexmark Destroyer is more of an assassin type unit. So if you can take him, you get down. I mean, if you can snipe out a character, it doesn't matter if you die next turn, does it? You've done your job.
Yeah, and he's that cheap.
Yeah, I mean, but obviously, I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to use that the 12-inch line rule, because you've got a deep strike 9 inches away. So it's hardly going to kill anything with that extra line rule. But yeah, I mean, being able to take that option as well as the multiple guns is a great solve. Although I wouldn't necessarily want to pay 1 CP for a relic every time. He should just be there. He should have that option to with his guns, you know.
Okay, so you reckon just
Yeah,
rather than make it a relic, just give it to him.
Just make a
yeah,
wargear.
just give it to him. Yeah,
That's fair. Would you be okay with the points going up if he just got it?
yeah. The points can go up, say 10 points or something. Yeah,
Make it a wargear option where you can take in an addition for 10 points. I think that.
yeah.
Oh, look,
Yeah.
the other great thing about that is you could throw it on 3 of them then. Imagine having 3 of them running around.
Okay, I think we know now why it's become a relic, and you have to pay for it.
Yes, because Jono is a jerk like that.
Damn, Jessica.
Fun. Any other changes we'd make to him, or just that?
I think that's, as I said, maybe if it doesn't have that relic, maybe just help with the damage and the AP, potentially just make it a little bit more multi-purpose, because it's such a cool model.
Oh,
You know,
it's
you've
so
got
cool.
a 3-legged sniper with a big orb on his back and like 6 guns. Yeah, it's so cool. And obviously when he was released, loads of hype about him being Clint Eastwood, you know, like a Western adverts and stuff. And then you play him and he does nothing. He comes down, he's lucky to kill one thing, and then he dies the next turn.
So he becomes less Clint Eastwood in Dirty Harry and more Gran Torino Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Very good. Actually, speaking of Clint Eastwood, for him, something I just thought of that this is purely just my train of thought rolling out. So this is probably a terrible idea. But what if he had a stratagem where when he gets targeted by a ranged attack, he gets to shoot you first.
Yeah, that's
an
not bad.
interesting mechanic.
Because obviously he's got the Overwatch special ability, hasn't he? I think when he gets assaulted, he can.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to hit to hit.
Yeah, he
Doesn't have to
overwatches
roll
on
to
a
hit.
2+ instead of a 6.
Right. Yeah. But to be fair, people aren't. They're going to shoot him, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to die from shooting most likely.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad because it's such a cool model, and you only
I
get to put it
suppose
on
you
the table
could.
for such a short amount of time.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you could take some death marks as well, and deep strike him in with some death marks, and then he'll be protected from the death marks.
I mean, he's a character, so yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, but it's how many points you invest in that.
Yeah.
You know. So,
Although
yeah.
to be honest, I'd probably since you're not going to be able to deep strike him till turn 2 anyway, just advance some scarabs up and just the way you position, leave a room in the middle for him.
Yeah, that works.
It still comes down to the same thing where it's a very, I'm not going to say average, but slightly higher tier of a situational model, and how much do you want to spend in backing that up? Like for me, I will 100% throw a unit of 3 or 5 Chaos Bikers to run up with a Demon Prince, but that Demon Prince goes to work.
Maybe your Demon Prince does.
Yeah, well, that's a you thing. But no, it comes out. And just like we were talking about with list building, how it becomes very personal, and how you see yourself kind of playing the game, and who goes with what and who does what. I think that's a great point. How much do you want to invest in this unit? What's it going to be doing for you that you can guarantee that you would be spending the additional 200-300 points?
Yeah. And I suppose sometimes it's not just what they can kill as well. It's like, how can I use them to maybe help me get some secondaries? Like if you've got behind enemy lines, or if you've got treasures of eons, you could go out and get a lone objective for 1 turn. So I suppose there's that side of it as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, with an 8-inch move, he's not slow either. So you don't even necessarily have to deep strike him. At that points cost, you could potentially get your value out of him without shooting him the entire game. Just have him move forward onto a no man's land objective turn 1 and start scoring.
Well, yeah, if you can get something that's 80 points,
65 points. I did check.
65 points. 65 points. It's just like the Master of Execution in the 8th edition Codex for Chaos. That same thing. That thing was 65 points, and it was an absolute hammer. And you didn't have to put too much into it. So you start to get that trade option. But I think it's a little bit better if you can put 65 points on the table and say, this is definitely going to get me 5 victory points. 5 victory points, as we've seen, especially in 9th with the mission packs, that can be a very big difference between winning and losing at the end of the game.
True.
The only issue, though, is if you're going to deploy him like that rather than put him into Deep Strike Reserve, then you're probably just going to take a Chronomancer or a Technomancer instead, because they're just so much better.
Yeah.
That is ultimately the problem when it comes to this kind of thing. When you're talking about bringing a unit just to grab objectives for cheap, it's like, okay, I could do that, or I could bring a Technomancer and get some buffs off of his auras.
It's nice that you guys get cheap things. I have to spend like 365 points on 10 Terminators.
I mean, to be fair,
our HQs are quite expensive, though.
Yeah,
our HQs are quite expensive.
They're also pretty good.
They're good apart from in close combat. They're terrible.
When
I go up against Richard, well, when I go against Richard and his orcs, it's like, how many attacks do you get? It's like 1. Oh.
It's like,
when he's flown across the table in the war, and for turn he's in the charge.
So how many attacks do you get? Yes, I get attacks. Oh, fun. All right. Well, look, that seems like an excellent point to wrap up, and we only managed to go 6 minutes over. So yay us for timekeeping, and I didn't even have my timekeeping device here this week. So look, Nick's channel, link to it in the down there bit. Make sure that you like, subscribe. Gentlemen, anything you want to add before we close out?
I would just like to say a massive thank you for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been great talking about Necrons for an hour. So yeah, awesome.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to ask, did you put my link in the bio?
Not this time, because there was a limit on Restream and it wouldn't let me put it in.
Oh, that's fair. I'll do it myself. All right, guys, go and check out Heresy for Heretics on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch.
Wow, I swear you're just trying to show me up with the number of social medias you do.
I use one of them.
Well, yeah, thanks for watching. Do all of the things depending on which platform you're on. And as always, make sure, you do all of that. I am now running in circles because I have not slept in about like 3 days. And we'll see you all next time.